Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tara.
And I'm Dawn. We are so glad you are here.
What do you have there, Dawn?
Oh, this is just my world's best boss mug. You see, I guess someone thinks I'm the best boss.
Wait, did someone put you in charge around here? I thought we were equals.
Well, we were, until I got this mug. Now I'm the one in charge.
I don't think that's how it works. I think there's usually some paperwork with HR. You probably need to apply for this position.
Well, not only do I have this mug, but I also have this pretty cool keychain. And this sweet boss hat my kids made me. And I also have this awesome little bag. You see, all the signs are pointing to me being the best boss. And I've got this one too. Get it? All signs. This it's a sign?
Yeah, funny. Okay, I'm sure you would be a really great boss, but you can't actually just declare yourself the boss. This reminds me of our story for today. There was someone who thought he was in charge because he was the boss until God showed him who is actually in charge.
That sounds interesting. I suppose we can take a quick break and check out this story. But remember, this is company time.
Okay, let's check out a not-so-great boss.
After meeting with the Israelites to let them know that God had heard their cries and was coming to their rescue, Moses and Aaron delivered God's message to Pharaoh. "Let my people go." But Pharaoh refused because God had hardened his heart. Instead of showing mercy, Pharaoh was cruel and made the work and lives of the Hebrew slaves even more difficult than before. The showdown was at hand between God and Pharaoh. Who was the true king? Who was all-powerful? Whose command could not be ignored? God told Moses not to fear, but instead prepare to witness his mighty power as he forced Pharaoh to let his people go. The next morning, Moses again came to Pharaoh, and again Pharaoh refused to let the Hebrew people go. So, at the Lord's command, Moses told Aaron to stretch his staff over the Nile River, and the waters turned to blood, causing the fish to die and the waters to become undrinkable. But Pharaoh's heart hardened further, so God sent a second plague. This time, frogs covered every inch of the land. This became so unbearable that Pharaoh begged Moses and Aaron to make this plague stop. The morning of the following day, Moses returned to Pharaoh and commanded him to let God's people go. And again, Pharaoh refused. God had Aaron strike the dust with his staff, and gnats swarmed the land, covering both people and animals. When Moses came to Pharaoh again the next day, Pharaoh again refused Moses' request to let the people go. In response, God sent a fourth plague: flies. Like a black cloud, flies covered every part of Egypt except where the Hebrew slaves lived, spoiling the land and entering every Egyptian's house, including Pharaoh's palace. Once again, Pharaoh pleaded with Moses and Aaron to end this plague. God sent Moses to Pharaoh again, but Pharaoh still refused to listen to God. The next day, God sent a severe plague upon the Egyptians that killed their donkeys, camels, herds, and flocks. This hardened Pharaoh's heart even more against God. Again, God sent Moses to Pharaoh. When Pharaoh refused God's command yet again, Moses threw soot into the air, and it became dust that covered the land of Egypt, causing all the people in Egypt to break out into painful sores. Pharaoh's heart, hardened by God, made it so he continued to disobey God's command to let the Hebrew people go. God told Moses to go back to Pharaoh and warn him that the coming plagues would be much more destructive and harsh than the last. But Pharaoh still wouldn't listen. When Moses stretched his hand toward heaven, God sent a hailstorm unlike any that had ever been seen before in the land. It destroyed plants and homes and killed animals and people. Pharaoh confessed that he was wrong. But again his heart hardened, and he rejected God's command. Then God sent a plague of locusts. These insects covered the land and devoured the last remaining plants and trees in Egypt, leaving the once lush farmland surrounding the Nile a barren desert wasteland. Pharaoh was still unwilling to release God's people, so at God's command, Moses stretched his hand up to the sky, and a heavy darkness swallowed Egypt. For 3 days, no Egyptian saw another person or left their house. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron so he could try to make a deal to end the plague of darkness. Pharaoh said everyone could go to worship the Lord if all the Hebrew people left their flocks and herds behind. When Moses and Aaron refused this offer, Pharaoh commanded them never to come back or they would be killed. With the people still enslaved, God told Moses there would be one final plague, a plague so severe Pharaoh would have no choice but to free God's people. God told Moses that throughout the land of Egypt, every firstborn boy would die. God told Moses to tell the Hebrews to cover the doorposts of their homes with the blood of a lamb, and God would pass over their homes. At midnight, the firstborn sons in every Egyptian household died, including Pharaoh's own son. From the lowliest of servants to Pharaoh's palace, there was no home in Egypt untouched by death. This plague so devastated the land of Egypt that Pharaoh commanded God's people to leave. The Hebrews, who had been in slavery for generations, had been set free.
Okay, so Pharaoh didn't qualify to be the world's best boss. He was a tyrant. He kept God's people as slaves.
Yep, he sure did. He did, but God was more powerful than Pharaoh, and he led his people to a place where they could worship him as the one true God. He would be their God, and they would be his people. God is bigger than any earthly authority, which means when we don't like what our boss or our government or anyone who is in charge of us is doing, we can know that God is still in control.
That's right. And God didn't leave the Israelites stuck under Pharaoh's ruling. He rescued them.
That's right, and God continues to rescue us today. When we trust and obey Jesus, he saves us from our sin, and we become God's children. We can trust him.
Our bottom lines this month have all been about trusting God. And today we have one more. All right, you guys ready? God is bigger than any earthly authority. I can trust him.
That is so important. I think we need to stand up and say it together. Are you ready?
God
is bigger than any earthly authority. I can trust him. Good job. Have a seat, friends.
All right, that also means that when we are the ones in charge, we can trust that God will show us how we should lead.
You're right. Again, Moses and Aaron didn't always know what to do, but they followed God, and God showed them his plan.
That's reassuring, because as much as all this stuff says that I'm the best boss, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, maybe our memory verse can help you. We've been learning this together all month long. Let's stand up and say it together.
All right, let's go.
Okay. God is able to do far more than we could ever ask or imagine. He does everything by His power that is working in us. Ephesians 3:20.
All right, you guys can have a seat now. That is a great verse to help me remember to trust that God is working in my life. And I think He's going to help me be the world's best boss. In fact, God has shown me that you're really wise. So as my first act as boss, I'm going to appoint you to be my assistant.
Will I get the world's greatest assistant hat?
Now I think we can maybe figure something out. Thanks for joining us, friends. I'll see y'all next time. I gotta get some paperwork done to make me the official boss.
Hey, if we can't get a hat, maybe you could get me a trophy.
Don't push it.
Here are the actions for Good in Every Way.
Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give Him everything, He's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give Him everything, He's good in every way. He is always there for us, He's good in every way. Pouring out His awesome love, He's good in every way. He fills us up with peace and joy, He's good in every way. He gives us all we need and more, He's good in every way. Come on, let's join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give Him everything, He's good in every way. He is always there for us, He's good in every way. Pouring out His awesome love, He's good in every way. He fills us up with peace and joy, He's good in every way. He gives us all we need and more, He's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give Him everything, He's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. Everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give Him everything, He's good in every way. He's good in every way. He's good in every way. Woo!
If there's one thing we can count on, it's that God will never let us down, and we can trust everything He does. He keeps His promises, we know, because, yeah, the word of the Lord holds true. We can trust Him, we can trust Him, yeah, the word of the Lord holds true. We can trust Him, we can trust Him, yeah. Oh, yeah. If there's one thing we can count on, it's that God will never let us down, and we can trust everything He does.